On Thursdays, Bogart Radio talks business, where you can hear the best entrepreneurs chat freely, openly, and honestly, offering their wealth of industry and life experiences. My name is Christopher Augustine, and I'm an entrepreneur. And welcome to the show called The Climb, where we unpack every step of the climb. Today, we'll be talking to René Moodley. Welcome to the show.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So is it your first time on radio, or is this something that you regularly do?
Yes, actually it's the first time, so quite excited.
Okay, fantastic. Can you get a little bit closer to the mic? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. Welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure having you. So before we even get into the questions, I'd just like to give a little intro into our guest. So René Moodley has an impressive track record of scaling fintech businesses. He co-founded Softillion, a software company in over 14 countries, and helped launch and drive JSE's new disruptive business in JSE Private Placements. He co-founded African New Bank Loyalty Program. René is also be launching a boutique hotel in 2023. He has over 19 certifications, and he highlights being a UK MBA, which he has done and completed, and also Disruptive Strategy at Harvard University. That is an impressive introduction. René, this is crazy.
Yes, and no, thank you so much for that humbling introduction. I think it's really about the growth of myself, growth of people around us, and adding value to the world.
Okay, no, fantastic. So, again, thank you so much for coming through. So, I mean, you have so many accolades, and I mean, to actually get to the point of where you are and keep on going and keep on innovating, I mean, it just doesn't happen like that, right? I mean, success, I think, is something that is cultivated, that is intentional, and that is worked at every single day. But if you can take us through your childhood, like how was it being René Moodley as a child? Where did you grow up? What was the settings like to create the person that you are today?
Of course, I think that's a beautiful introduction to sort of who I am and where I've come from. And I think just sort of setting the scene, I've actually been brought up in Durban, which is an exciting space to be. And the humbling thing is, you know, we stood on the shoulders of geniuses and the likes of my parents as an example. And I think what's beautiful about my childhood, it was almost split between two facets. The first facets being my parents trying to, you know, almost find their feet in terms of entrepreneurship themselves, trying to break away from their corporate 9-to-5 job. And I think midway through my life as a teenager, they sort of became successful. And I think it was such a beautiful learning for me as I grew up, being an entrepreneur in that space, because I got to see the successes and failures through their eyes.
So you were exposed to entrepreneurship from as early as you can remember?
Yes. In fact, a beautiful story for me is I remember, playing around with the blocks next to my parents having board meetings. So it was quite exciting.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, so that young?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So so as a child, what subjects did you even choose in school? Because I know at that time, like currently it's very different, but I know at that time you could be very specific in the subject that you choose at school. What did you choose?
So for me, I think the default is English, Afrikaans, Maths.
Yep.
The ones that I really levitated to was the IT space. So that's where I've sort of grown and brought up with. The second component is architecture.
Okay.
So I did technical drawing. And last but not least is physics.
Fantastic. And you know, a lot of people, like I know myself, I'm like, guys, I learned about biology and I learned about photosynthesis and it doesn't help me at all. You know, I mean, has even at that time choosing that subjects purposefully, has that helped you at all in university level, or was it just like I've studied to get my matric to get to university?
Now, I think first and foremost, I was blessed to sort of make sure that we think twice before acting. So I spent a lot of time choosing those subjects.
Yeah.
And I think they played a critical role specifically in my career path. So I think it's an important one to choose the right subjects. Also, in addition to that, what's quite nice, it actually teaches you, how do you research, how do you learn, how do you become a better person as well.
Okay, cool. So it definitely helped. And then once you got done with your matric, did you take a gap year a little bit to think about where to from here, or did you jump straight into studying and be like, okay, cool, this is what I want to do? 19 certifications, like I won't get over that. That is something to be so proud of, because I know studying is commitment, and to be committed 19 times over is quite an accolade. So I mean, did you get straight into studying? And what was your first course or degree or yeah?
Yes, and I think it's so ironical because as I grew up, I think the parents were always pushing study, and as kids, you were like, oh gosh, I've got to do this. Mm-hmm. And I think over time we've become actually accustomed to learning and growing. Mm-hmm. And you realize that as you're growing, the first actually undergrad that I did was actually engineering, funny enough.
Wow.
And I did that at the University of Johannesburg. Mm-hmm. And I spent 2 years doing that. And funny enough, that was actually not the career path that was actually destined for me. Mm-hmm. And I left engineering and actually started BCom IT.
So how many years did you actually finish off or complete in engineering before you decided, listen, this is, I get it, but it's really not my passion?
2 years, exactly. So it was exciting. Sure. I think the 2 years sort of set the tone for two things. One is I saw myself that it wasn't the habit that I wanted to build within René. Mm-hmm. And so I found myself.
In those 2 years.
Exactly. I found myself in those 2 years, and I found what I'm not good at. Your passion and your love comes through it. And I think I was aspiring to be something that's not in alignment to René's ethos.
So at that point, how old are you?
Wow, that's a good question. I think I was on the tail end of 20.
So 20 years old, you kind of completed an engineering degree, found exactly where you want to be. So maybe the age of 21, you went to BCom IT.
Correct.
Right,
correct.
And then while you were doing that, did you go ahead and work concurrently on projects or freelance and use that, or did you just focus on your studies and say, hey, let me just finish this and then I'll get on to the next thing?
Of course. So I think the first component was, from an engineering perspective, I did that full time. Mm-hmm. After that, the financial situation came to bear. Mm-hmm. And so I actually worked and studied at the same time, which was quite exciting. And really actually was the bedrock of who I am today, mm-hmm. because it taught me how to still find the balance between working a 9 to 5 mm-hmm. as well as coming home and still studying and finishing a degree.
So you didn't do something part-time, you worked in 9 to 5?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so take me through what age did that happen? What was your first job?
You hit it on the nail. So I was at 21. Funny enough, it's engineering, so mm-hmm. we were building trailers. Okay. So I can do the whole boiler making, fitting, turning of trailers. So I do understand that world quite well.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was studying BCom IT. So it was quite exciting.
So and how long did that journey last for?
3 years. 3 years, while I was doing my BCom.
And so you only kind of left once you completed your degree, and then you went into the next phase.
Exactly. And I think the interesting challenge is, one looks at this and says, the failures are teaching us a lot, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw engineering as a failure to René, mm-hmm. but actually that failure was something I grew and actually something I'm proud of mm-hmm. that I've actually went through.
So the first nugget, or the first thing that you can actually give to our listeners is, never failure, always a lesson.
Exactly.
And the lesson that you took out from there was
that, there's always new beginnings. There's always things that you can do, a fresh start. And even through those failures of the 2 years, I've learned a lot, which mm-hmm. is quite exciting.
Fantastic. I mean that's great. That I think in everything that we do, if we can kind of take out some positive from it, because in life everything is a lesson.
Exactly.
I believe everything is a lesson. So you're done with the trailer job, but I mean, before we even leave the engineering for trailers and Boilermaker and all of those things, and the studying, how was it in terms of you as René emotionally, like physically and mentally, to actually go in? Because when I worked at Nestle for a bit, and I did the entire 8 to 5 job, and I know a lot of people don't know this about me, but I attempted also to study. I did, I think, two and a half years of BCom charter accounting.
Wow.
Yeah, I did that, right? And I mean, it was intense. Mentally, I couldn't manage. Physically, I was completely drained. I used to leave to get to work probably around 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning. Go to Randburg, study from 4:30 or 5 o'clock till the time office is actually open, which is 8 o'clock, and also to miss the traffic, because I think traffic is like a major thing in Joburg. And then in the evenings, I shouldn't rush and go home. I should literally stay at the office, study again until maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then go home. I shouldn't see the sunlight. So for me, it completely drained me physically, mentally, emotionally. I had no time for friends. I had no time for family. I was at that point kind of working on Chris and working and focusing on that. What was your experience like?
I think you also covered it so well that, in that time frame, I think one would be naive to think that it's all, beds and roses. So I was equally going through my flux as an individual, also trying to find who René is. And I think to your point, we go through this mental blockages, emotional blockages. Who you want to become as a person. And I think the North Star, if I may, was where do I see René in the next 10 to 15 years? And I think that kept me, honest, kept me true to the dedication of completing that degree.
So kept you ongoing in that journey. So everything that you do is, like, from speaking to you, is not for the now, for instant gratification. It seems like you're always planning for the future. You're always thinking, okay, what does that result in 5 to 10 years? What does this mean for me?
Oh, you covered it so beautifully. And I think there's two components to that, right? The first component is, what do we need to do today? A lot of people talk a good talk and are able to, sing a good song. The question is, when it comes down to doing the work,
how does that look like?
Yes, exactly. So it's about sitting down today as well as planning for the future.
So now you completed the BCom IT degree. How was that degree?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was one of a kind. Even though your point is so valid, probably used 5% of it. But I think, something that I also want to give to the listeners is that even though you use such a small percentage of it, it's actually the learning of how to learn that's critical.
Yeah.
And I think that's the takeaway.
Learning how to learn.
Exactly.
That is incredible. Actually, like when you say it sounds familiar, but to hear it, it's like, wow. A lot of people don't know how to learn.
Exactly.
Just to sit down and focus and to cut out the noise and to be like, listen, no TikTok, especially today when there's so much noise. No TikTok, no Instagram, no social media, no WhatsApp, no nothing. I'm sitting down, I'm finishing 30 pages of this chapter. I'm learning, I'm studying, I'm learning how to learn. Like, I need to do this. Is there any technique? You've done so much. Is there any technique that you use to study and to accomplish all that you have academically?
I think first and foremost is I always, pay for the studies. So I say, let's commit. Next year I'm doing X, Y, and Z. So every year since I've left school, I've never stopped studying. And hence, we've come to that specific number, which is quite exciting.
We need number 20.
So I think commitment is critical. And when it comes to commitment, you're putting money down, you're putting commitment down, and you're signing on the dotted line.
Yeah.
But I think on a day-to-day basis, what's critical is about saying, let me keep that end goal in mind. One of the things I really do, which is a nugget, is I actually paint the poster of my degree and sort of put that as my vision board. And that's something I look at every morning and I say, I'm actually going to achieve that degree. And how do I get that? So I'm already aspiring to completing it.
So in terms of like extracting from that, like, just have the end in mind as a goal. So have that on your wall. It's not about the material things that comes with the degree. It's actually having value in that degree and saying, listen, I'm proud of achieving this accolade, and visualizing that till its end and know that it's worth something at the end. Because I think a lot of people get into studying and get into business for the wrong reasons. And money is nice. Cars are amazing. Real estate is fantastic. But I think knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. You got it down to an art. And even from an IT perspective, you say knowledge is power, information is power, which is exciting. And I think adding another nugget to the point we're just discussing now is saying, once you're studying, it's not about the paper. Everyone is aiming for the paper at the end of the day. But the goal for me is actually the information that comes out of all these courses.
That is incredible. And so now we're done with the BCom IT. We're done at manufacturing trailers and engineering trailers. You are a young 24-year-old, 25-year-old?
Yes, exactly.
So my age, I'm kidding. So now, where to from that point? You've left that job, you've completed that degree. It seemed like a clean start to something fresh. So where to from there?
I was blessed, to be honest with you, Chris. And you know what happened? Literally, the last exam that I wrote was on a Monday, funny enough. And so we actually settled down to try and get stuck into holidays.
Okay.
And on a Wednesday, I got a call to say, can you start on Monday, the following Monday? Start my new job. And I'll actually join the graduate program of Standard Bank.
That is, but I mean, nice. But this didn't just happen, right? So I mean, so while you were in your previous position and while you were studying your previous, your degree, you were applying for internships.
Of course.
So I mean, so what I'm getting from this is, although you're busy doing what you're doing, also work on your future plan. So always keep applying, always keep the progression in mind. So where did you go to, which websites, what route did you use to apply for this internship, and how did you know that the banks was something that you wanted to even work with?
I think there's two facets there. One is, when you look at this, there's two components. It's almost like driving, right? Driving from Joburg to Durban.
Yeah.
You have to have the end goal in mind, but at the same time, you need to see as far as the headlights can shine. And I think that's critical. So keeping an eye on the ball of finishing the degree is critical. But in terms of applying, the question is, what degree are you trying to get into? And I think from my perspective, it was IT.
Yeah.
And then it's trying to do that research and saying, what are the types of organizations I see myself in? I see myself in banking institutions, in IT institutions. And then from there, the dream was born to say, let me push on and let me actually apply to those organizations.
So you had this job. This is my foundation to pay for my degree and to get me to where I want to be. And while I'm in that, I'm also applying to where I want to be.
Exactly.
That is insane. And then you receive a call to say you're starting on Wednesday at Standard Bank.
Exciting, eh? Exciting.
That is exciting.
And I think there, if I may just double click on that, it wasn't all guns and roses, funny enough for me. When we started, they said you only got a 3-week stint. And that 3-week stint, at the end, you basically have to go home. So I said, okay, no, awesome, I'll take it anyway.
Like, you don't know who you're dealing with, right? You're going to ask me to stay. Okay, so you started?
I only started there. They actually said, almost put paper in the printer, so to speak, for 3 weeks. But I went there with a mission. The mission was to land a job. And so when I joined for a week, after the week, I said, can I join the graduate program officially?
Yeah.
And they said, absolutely not. It's fully closed. There's 116 graduates already full for the next year, which was 2009. And you can apply the following year.
Okay.
But as I said earlier, that I had a different mission in mind. And so I blew their socks off, and I was one of the first, in fact, non-permanent staff members to actually win an award in terms of an employee of Standard Bank, which they call the True Blue.
That is incredible. So, 24 years old, working at Standard Bank. How long did the Standard Bank journey last you?
It was about 3 to 5 years, actually.
Okay.
So it was an exciting journey, and I went from credit all the way to a SAP implementation, which was quite exciting. And then I went on to run the business intelligence for Standard Bank Africa.
All of this within a 3 to 5 year period.
So the 3 to 5 years literally was a build-up, which was exciting, and it was me just pushing the boundaries. Again, when I walked into the bank, it was so exciting, and funny enough, my blood is blue because of that. And therein was quite an exciting journey where they talk about career plans. And so I sat down and I actually pulled a 10-year career plan, and I'll never forget the day where my manager at that time laughed at the career plan. I said, René, what are you thinking? That's very idealistic.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud to say that I've actually achieved that career plan within that time frame.
That is really incredible. And I think through your commitment and your hard work and visioning exactly and being very purposeful of where you want to be, you're here today. So I'm going to kind of fast track quickly into how did your first business start? So this show is about entrepreneurship, right?
Of course.
And about entrepreneurs. So you've got a lot of training and you've got a lot of foundation from corporate level, which some entrepreneurs don't have. So I think that is an amazing blessing for you to have that kind of foundation and to have the academic support that you do have. But what was the tipping point to say, I've got the experience, I've got the foundation, I've got the network, I've got the resources. It's time to get out of this corporate nest that I'm in, and I want to venture into the world of entrepreneurship like my mom and dad, you know. What age was that, and what did that moment look like?
So for me, I started my first business when I was in grade 11, by the way.
Okay.
And so I never
you
stopped.
skipped that part.
And we can circle back to if need be. But I actually never stopped being an entrepreneur. Even when I started at Standard Bank, I knew it wasn't the place I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But I think the scars on my back really come from being in corporate, being humbled by lovely mentors, by people, by processes. And I think it's such a critical role for an entrepreneur to go through.
Okay, great. So what was your first business in grade 11? What were you selling?
That's an exciting one.
Love to know.
So funny enough, my friend and I, we decided to actually, there was an ad in the paper. I'm giving away my age here. So there was an ad in paper to sort of install CCTV cameras in KZN.
Okay.
And so we applied under a pseudonym of one of our parents, in fact my friend's parent, and we applied. And funny enough, they actually called us for the meeting, also for the briefing session. Okay. And so we went for the briefing session. And as nervous as one could be, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, you're only in grade 11. I mean, your confidence is not there yet.
Exactly. And I mean, just to also paint the picture, none of my family members or friends even know what CCTV cameras are.
Sure.
So we didn't have the background or the blessing in some shape or form in terms of knowledge. So we came back, we actually filled in a quotation, submitted it. About a week later, they actually came back and said,
"You got it.
You got the job."
And you're like, "Okay, how do I start? What do I do now?"
And we're still in school. So they phoned us up and says, "Guys, when can you guys start?" We said, "We'll look at our calendar. We'll come back to you." And we said, "We're actually only available on weekends." And actually, they didn't know that we're obviously still in school. So we spent a lot of the time now Googling, basically, how to build CCTV cameras, get a loan. We sort of bought a crimping machine, which is basically a device to sort of work with cables, etc., etc. And in about 2 to 3 weeks, we actually started the initiative. And we started installing the first CCTV cameras in some of the retail stores in KZN.
So this is a big job.
It was. And what's really humbling is through that journey of exploration, we are able to say, today you drive down to Durban and those same CCTV cameras are still installed.
That is insane. So, I mean, from that, René, this is insane. That is just another level. So, I mean, that business was just a once-off project.
Correct.
And then you were done. So your first official business, what was it and how did it start?
Perfect. So my first official business was when I joined Standard Bank, funny enough. And since my blood was blue.
So around 25?
Correct. Okay. I started Softillion with a partner of mine.
All right.
So there was two
I kind of know about that company a little bit.
So we founded a basically now dining room, which is really an exciting. Basically, it's a fintech business, and we look at two facets. One is sort of a small to medium enterprise channel development, and the second being advanced development.
Okay, so you started at the age of 25, and till today, is that your business?
Yes, exactly.
That's still running.
Exactly. I think it's such a blessing because we're still partners today, and I think picking the right partners is such a critical thing because it's innovation, it's adaptability, etc., etc. So I think we humbled, not by just René's success, but actually the success of a team to be able to say that this about 14 countries that we now institutionalize.
The 14 countries and starting off, I mean, just to get to the level that you are, and especially in a space that's ever changing. Because with fintech, and because I kind of get hints of it now and again, I am in digital. So, I mean, I do understand a little bit of fintech, maybe not as advanced as you do. But what I do know is that it's ever changing. So, I mean, to have a business like that in South Africa, but then in 14 other countries, still be compliant, still be adaptable, and still running it above the line, is insane. So we're going to take a short break. And then when we get back, we're going to speak about how did you grow this business in SA and how did you scale it at the level that it is. So more on the climb when we get back after this break. And welcome back to The Climb. That was two amazing songs. One of, I think, two of René's favorite songs, right? So the first one was Chasing Dreams by Good Luck. And the second one was My Universe by Coldplay and BTS. I hope all of you are having an amazing time listening to myself, Christopher Augustine, and René Moodley on The Climb. So in the first part of this segment, we spoke a lot about the starting and the journey and how that looked like. And now we're going to focus on, where are we now as an entrepreneur and how does that look like in the climate of South Africa and globally? I mean, since René is playing in 14 different countries, so definitely a global market. René, welcome back to the show.
Excellent, lovely.
Are you having a good time?
Having a blast. Excellent. Fantastic. As long as we're adding value to the listeners.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you again so much for doing this. Now, this company that you started in, how many years ago? You said
Wow, 2013, I think it was, officially, but actually unofficially, our IT business started in 2009.
2009.
Yes.
Believe it or not, that's the year that my business started, in 2009.
Wow.
So we've been at this for a long time, right?
Of course.
We've been at this for a long time. So you started this business, you formalized it, again, got a lot of knowledge from the banks, you got a lot of knowledge, from your parents, from your family, from your peers, etc., etc. You in fintech, okay, cool. You're starting this company called Softillion. What did you want to achieve in starting this business? So if I can position it in a different way, what was your impact at that point?
I think there's two components. One is, we want to add value and we want to become valuable to the world.
Okay.
And I think that's a critical thing around how do we add value. And I think as you go through a corporate journey, you sort of build these skill sets, right? So we amalgamated IT as well as adding value to the world.
Okay, and what was the intentional value that you wanted to add as a fintech business?
I think there's sort of two components again. One is help sort of entrepreneurs set up and start a business, which is critical. And then secondly, scale up those businesses. Because it's one thing to set up a business, but it's almost like a mom and pop store. The question is, how do you scale that?
How do you scale that business?
And that's critical.
So you started Softillion. Were you product faced where you built products independently and said, okay, cool, and I'll use this internal joke for us. Let's build this directory and then we'll launch it. Did you build internal products or did you go to market and say, hey, we can build products for you as per your specifications? What was your first route to market?
So first, we actually sat down with my team and my co-partner. And we said, we have the skill set of advanced development. We understand fintech very well, but let's humble ourselves. Let's start with a simple thing like a website, mobile apps. And we said that will earn some innings on the board.
But in 2009, that wasn't simple.
Yes, exactly. And it proved to be, a 5-page website may sound simple. Yeah. But, I think what it gave us is the opportunity to learn how each other work.
Okay.
And then what we did is we used that as the foundation of not just the business, but also the relationship that we cultivated as a culture within the organization.
And when you say me and my team and me and my partners, so when you started in 2009, if I can ask, is that your partner today still, or how did that relationship go?
Yes, in fact, funny enough, we're still partners, which is quite exciting.
Fantastic.
And we went through an interesting journey where we divorced and then we came back.
It's good to get a divorce sometimes.
Exactly.
It's great to get back. You missed the other person.
That's naughty. But on a serious note, I think that's a testament to how much value we want to add. It's a testament to the right intention. It's a testament to also the value we want to create for customers.
Okay, and then when you went about, starting the business again, and the reason why I'm driving this point a little bit is because a lot of people who listen to the show, they don't know the first thing about even opening up a business. So, when you open up a fintech business, is it generalized, like I go onto CIPC, I register my stuff there, or is it different processes that you follow?
Of course. So I think on the backdrop of saying, learning is the critical thing about work, learning to learn. Then I evolved that to saying, how do we research effectively? So it's important to say, I want to add value in creating a new soda product, as an example. So the first thing I would recommend doing is sort of going out there and trying to speak to individuals, people that you can see as mentors, potentially, and say, how did you actually achieve this? How did you go there? So I think it's critical to leverage off the strengths of others.
You're actually the second guest on the show that said that. is like also go and find mentors, and I soak whatever they need, whatever they kind of willing to share with me, and I introduce it into my own business. And I have a saying where I say, a fool learns from his own mistakes, and a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. So I think you kind of fast track your journey. If I said to you like, Chris, I opened up fintech business, but A, B, C, D, that's roadblocks. Please don't go there. But this is kind of what works. You probably saved me 3-4 years.
Exactly.
Of learning.
And I think on top of that, with this generation, as we're going through it, you may actually find yourself in a space that actually cannot find a mentor close to you. And if that happens,
That is very true.
there are many other avenues. So one is you either find a person that you can link up to. If you can't do that, a book can be a mentor. A YouTube video can be a mentor. So the question is, how resourceful are you to find the information you need to set up your business? And there are tons of that.
And that's so powerful. I think, like, I don't have any mentors. And I think in life, like, people are so busy that they won't be able to pick up the phone. They won't be able to take a call. I mean, they have their own important things going on. But if you ask me, like, who are the people that I listen to and that I surround myself with? It's books and podcasts. I'll say Richard Branson, it's Elon Musk, it's all of these people, and you learn how they think and you learn how they react in situations. And I think you adapt that to your life. So let's touch on that a bit. What books have you been reading recently?
Of course. In fact, let me first start with my favorite book. So in grade 11, funny enough,
everything happened in grade 11, guys.
I was introduced to Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
From Robert Kiyosaki.
That's a powerful book.
That is my Bible.
You're still lending me that book, bro.
Okay, definitely. After the show, Chris, after the show. The second one, in fact, the one that I'm reading now is Atomic Habits. What a beautiful product.
You know what? You're the first guest, and I'm taking notes because you are teaching me.
No problem. And I think, having the right habits is critical. So Atomic Habits is really a must read because a lot of people talk the talk. A lot of people have sexy ideas.
Yeah.
The question is, can you implement them today?
Yeah.
And that's what separates an entrepreneur from somebody that has beautiful ideas that we talk at a bar.
Yeah. Like, I want to do this and I want to do that. I think that's what separates a dreamer from an entrepreneur.
Correct. And Chris, maybe just to add, even when we started Softillion, it wasn't our ideal product. We said, let's get going is the critical nugget.
Let's start something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we started small. We learned a lot. We've got a few scars on our backs. And I think that's really the name of the game.
So going back to Softillion, you started Softillion, you found a partner that said, hey, listen, I want to go on this journey with you. So it is you and him at the time.
Exactly.
And did you guys, like the Canberra situation, do projects together initially to save on costs? Because when you're an entrepreneur, there's no massive cash flow. You're literally, working on your first deal and things like that. So did you work independently with him on the first project, or how did that look like? What was your first project?
So my first project was a small little 2-page website. And I think, Les Brown covers it quite well. He says, how hungry are you? And we were so hungry to at least get a product on the platform or get a product out there.
Powered by Softillion on the footer.
We actually didn't care whether we even lost money, to be really honest with you. We were hungry for the learning.
Yeah.
And sometimes, circling back to the point of mentors, sometimes your mentor is your learnings. The question is, go out, get it done. You may fail. That's okay. But you're failing small. You're not.
But you're out there.
Exactly. And I think you'd rather have 10 years of failures on your back than have great ideas.
Yeah, and never materialize into anything. So, to have a conversation to say, like, you know what, I could have done, instead of said, I tried that, failed, but it rerouted me to this, and I'm currently doing that.
Exactly.
So I think that's a better conversation to have. So,
and I think to your point, today we can talk about, the bragging rights about, we've been setting up ATMs, online share trading platforms, etc., etc. So we've done some really amazing fintech in the world, in fact, in Africa. But I think that comes with time, right? That comes with also experience. It comes with the professionalism that we've also learned.
And it all happened from building a 2-page website and then from there opening it up more. So now how do you transition? And actually, this is, I think, a question that I would love to hear. How do you transition from building websites and building mobile applications to getting into the actual meat of fintech, which is ATMs and online trade share platforms, and how do you transition from there to there? Because to get a bank or a financial institute to trust you with code and to trust you with that kind of monstrous IP, how do you get there? How do you get a seat at that table?
Of course. So I think first and foremost, it's really about going through the rungs of the ladder. And I think as you go through the runs, couple nuggets you learn. Number one, it's partnerships, right? So again, it's sort of like a mentor, right? If you partner with the right people, they also assist you and you assist them. So we sort of instilling knowledge to them and vice versa. And I think it's such a critical component around partnering, not thinking that you're going to do everything yourself is a critical one. The second one is education. I'm a big advocate on education. And I think we always made sure that how do you talk about scalability? And I actually went and paid for some of, basically all my loans or credit cards was paying on learning about scaling a business. And those sort of advantages actually came out through that business and learning how to scale. So I think it's education. It's really about partnerships. It's really about networking. And I think that's critical. You do that quite well as well. And I think about being in the right place at the right time. You talk a bit about luck as well. But you set yourself up for luck, right?
Absolutely. And I think the network component is so cool because, you can know a little bit about everything. So you can kind of open conversations and open doors that never existed. Like I know sometimes literally sitting in a steam room or a sauna at the gym and someone mentions logistics. I know something about that. If they mention fintech, I know you. So, I'm like, okay, cool. I kind of, so you kind of connect the dots. And I think as an entrepreneur, if we hear something, I don't ever think it's a hard no. I think as an entrepreneur, it's let's see if we can get this done. And I think in the way that we operate, how can we get this done 110%?
Exactly.
And make sure we exceed your expectations. So getting to fintech, so you say partnerships, making sure that, you build that, you climb that ladder and you get to see the right person. How did you showcase the first, I wouldn't say prototype, because I know a lot of fintechs and products, you have to have a little bit of a prototype. So, did you do the initial investment in, how did that look like when you got your first job, no cash flow into it, or did you negotiate with the supplier to pay you? How did the first big project look like? So we passed the 2-page website, now you've got a monster project that was given to you, like the CCTV cameras, right? So I'm sure you experienced the same emotion. So what did that monster project look like within Softillion?
I think first and foremost, there we already had cash flow in Softillion, to be able to absorb that type of initiative. The second component is we priced well.
Okay.
So pricing is critical, and that's the learning again coming from all these mentorship type of models we spoke about earlier. So we made sure that we at least covered our cost up front just to get the business going, or at least the customer going. And everything is history, if I may.
Sure. So you never did, because a lot of clients, even big corporates, push you for free work. They're like, no, build it, let's see how it works, and then we'll take it from then. You put a lot of effort into it. So did you experience any projects where you put a lot of effort into it and you got blindsided by it, or was all of your projects kind of, because it seems like you're very meticulous in getting into things, but is there any experiences that you can tell us about where you could have mitigated and maybe we can take some value from that?
Yes, exactly. I think any entrepreneur that says we haven't failed,
it's been sunshine and rainbows the entire 20 years of business.
So I think to your point, a couple of nuggets for us and for the listeners, which is quite exciting, is number one, very quickly sort of see who you're doing business with. And it's really about what's the meat on the bone, if I may, even though I'm vegetarian.
I love it.
What's the meat on the bone that we all are aspiring to? And I think sometimes you get to a customer that really wants to take you for a ride, if I may, and it's okay. It's okay, really. Sometimes you may lose a bit to gain more. And there are a lot of customers where we actually gave too much in the beginning. And I think we've learned a lot from that journey.
Yeah.
Number one, even though we were, in inverted commas, taken advantage of, we learned what not to do. We learned how to sort of price more efficiently. We learned how to have the right staff members. So all through the learnings of Softillion, it's literally in the bedrock of how we formulated the business.
Fantastic. I mean, I know I also have some staffing issues as well, but again, you wouldn't know the good unless you went through the bad.
Exactly.
And I think you kind of appreciate the bad to say, listen, this I'm going to do it this way now. And if you don't pay your school fees, how are you going to learn?
Exactly.
I think it is what it is. And in terms of where is okay, so you have Softillion, right? So before we move on there, so now you've expanded in SA, right? You've got your business in SA, but I know digital is global. So I mean, the world becomes so small when you're in digital. So you're in South Africa. How did you push on and scale to, what was your first country that you made your debut in?
Of course, Mozambique, funny enough, which is an exciting space. And there we actually landed up a partnership with government, which is really exciting. And I'll never forget that deal where we were sort of still negotiating and they actually told us to fly in. And, when we got to the runway, they actually picked us up literally when the plane landed.
So you felt like you were in a movie, like, guys have arrived.
And I think the most humbling component, Chris, is when you break into different countries, it's not about going there with your ego. And the ego we went there where they say, we want Softillion front and center. And you realize when you step into a different region that you need to sort of appreciate that they understand your customers better than you do.
Yeah.
They understand that universe better than you do. So how do you actually cultivate sales and marketing within that own ecosystem
and adapt to their...
Yes, and we almost play in the backdrop of that. And that's exactly how we set up Softillion, in the sense of those partners are set up to succeed.
Sure. So I mean, you went to Mozambique, government deal, and then from there you opened up your offices. And is that... also a partnership, or is that run through someone who's maybe like from SA and staying there in Mozambique?
So in the Mozambique example, it's a JV. So we actually formed a JV. But if you look at different other regions, there's other models, right? So one was form a joint venture. The other one was Softillion itself, because they didn't have a powerful brand.
Okay.
So each region comes with a new negotiation tactic.
So a different mixture of what's working in that market. And okay, so we understand that in terms of like playing in other markets and things like that. I have to ask, how do you do it all? Like, I mean, you obviously managing all of it, right? The different countries. How do you manage all the business in the different countries? What does that look like?
Again, it's humbling to note that we have chosen the right partnerships. We have chosen the right people to be in the right spaces. And yes, that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
But the question is, if you go into a relationship with the right intentions, if you go into the relationship with transparency, with written agreements, if I may add, it cultivates the right formulation. I think as entrepreneurs, we always, want to take the full pie for ourselves.
Yeah.
And because you get hungry, right? You're like, wow, I want the whole pie. We need to learn how to share.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. Sharing the art of sharing is really scalability.
And do these the partners in the respective countries and roles, do they report directly to you? Do you assume that role, or does your partner take care of that?
So again, it sort of plays in different regions are different models.
Okay.
So in some models, they do report back to us. In other models, you almost feel like you report to the customer.
No, I got you.
So I guess it's different, different models for different spaces.
And your role now in Softillion, because it doesn't seem like, after growth, you're not a startup. You kind of settled. You've got your foundation. What does your role look like now?
So now, I'm blessed to say, sort of assume an NED role. And basically that's like a non-executive role.
So waking up at 10.
I'm playing on the golf course.
Playing on the golf course.
No, that's something we all think a successful entrepreneur looks like. And that's so not the case. In fact, we are already aspiring to other aspects. So Softillion is run by a team of, really proud individuals. And at the same time, we are already aspiring for other initiatives. So there's 4 more sort of swim lanes in the tank.
Oh, fantastic. So, so you're working on different verticals of the business.
Exactly.
That is really phenomenal. So we're going to take a small break, and then when we come back, every entrepreneur, guys, we are humans, right? So we live life, we get married, we have relationships and things like that, and managing all of those things can be crazy as an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur there's so many different things that happen. So we're going to go through, what does a day in life look like with René. More on the climb when we get back. And welcome back to the climb. This will be our last segment, and we are talking more about René Moodley. René, welcome back to the show.
Lovely.
So we're going to speak about your personal life and basically what it is that you get up to on a daily basis and managing everything. So take me through a day in life of René Moodley. What time do you wake up? What time do you sleep? Do you have any meditation habits, any mantras that you live by? What does that look like?
Yes. So for me, I love waking up early. I think that's almost a mantra of every entrepreneur.
What does early mean? Because my early is...
Wow. I love the 5 o'clock mark.
Okay.
So the 5 a.m. club is really the space to be.
Okay.
One of the first things I do when wake up is actually go through a to-do list.
Okay.
It's such a critical thing because it sort of prioritizes my day. So I think that's a very big nugget.
And is there any specific software that you use to control your life? Is it calendar app? Is it Google Keep? Is it Trello? What do you use to manage that to-do list?
So my guru, so to speak, is actually OneNote.
OneNote.
I love OneNote because I'm able to capture my minutes as well as have sticky notes on the side in terms of prioritizing.
Okay, no, fantastic. So you have a to-do list early in the morning, so you know exactly what your day looks like, and then what to from there.
Then we have a lovely cup of coffee, and then we get going. So for me, as the day progresses, you'll realize there's a lot of things that come in your day that actually was not planned for.
Absolutely.
And I think it's critical to have the discipline to make sure you keep updating your to-do list, if I may. So that's a critical one. So the 8 to 5 is really time boxing work in terms of building businesses. Once the 5 o'clock hits, if I may, and it's never always 5, it's almost sometimes 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I think it's having a balance to come home and actually breathe a little bit, spend time with yourself, and also spend time with family. I think that's a critical one. For me, which is a little bit unique, I love gymming in the evenings. I'm an 8 o'clock guy, by the way.
8 p.m.
8 p.m., 8 to 9, which is really quite exciting.
Okay.
Almost nobody's at the gym.
you do have those people who I've seen, and I think the bigger advanced fitness people will go at that time. In the morning, it's all the corporates. They just want to get it out of the way and start their day. But training at that time again and having this, that's quite impressive.
Yes, in fact, I love it because, that's the time when, there's no real pressure to deliver something in the next hour or two.
And you can take your time and no one's calling you at that time.
Exactly. So I actually enjoy the evening gymming sessions. Really exciting.
And is there any, in your day and in your daily life, is there any nuggets before we close the show that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So I think for me, the deeper ones really talk about the devil's in the detail. So maybe let's give some examples. HR. I think if you're hiring people, number one is to make sure, do they have the passion?
Yeah.
It's critical. Secondly is skill, funny enough. And you hear that a lot, but actually implementing it is powerful. Second one, finance. It's such a critical thing to get Sage 1 accounting, as well as get an accountant.
Get an accountant, a good accountant that submits on time and
exactly.
Make sure you're paying those penalties.
And guys, I think it's so important that even if you start small, a little bookkeeper on the side, that helps because it's the right habit.
Yeah.
Third, if I may, is legal. It's almost like paying your insurance.
Yeah.
Get a good lawyer.
Get a good lawyer.
Because it's so important to have the right terms and conditions, right processes, right
Someone to
agreement.
read the contracts.
Remember we talked about earlier about partnerships.
Yeah.
Partnerships is really about formulating that in writing.
Yeah.
Legal plays a big role in that space.
Because I think if it's a true partnership and you're dealing with someone who has integrity, if I say it, I'm happy for you to put it in black and white.
Exactly.
Right?
No, that's the mantra. And, looking at every pillar, marketing the same. I mean, you look at digital marketing, physical marketing, there's a whole host. It's really about understanding the value of your customer. Where is that customer? And relying on, the likes of yourselves to talk about where do you fish to find those customers?
What does the watering holes look like?
Exactly. So again, guys, I think it's important to partner and to learn from other people.
Oh, fantastic. René, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for your time. I know taking like this amount of time out of your day is quite a lot, but I truly appreciate you being here. And good luck in all of your business ventures. And wishing you all of the best.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much. And guys, that was Chris Augustine and René Moodley on The Climb. Catch me on Thursdays next week with our next guest. And I hope the show was amazing and really insightful for you. Have an amazing Thursday.